this session about IBM Notifier. I'm Simone Martorelli, and today, together with my colleague Jan Valentik, we are both software developers in the Mac at IBM team, and we are going to provide you a little technical overview of this tool. IBM Notifier is a macOS agent used to display custom banners, alerts, pop-up dialogues, and onboarding UI to the end user. We used to have multiple tools to do so in our workflows, but none of these had all the features that we needed and all the UI that we needed to show in one tool. So we decided to build up our tool, and that's how we born IBM Notifier. As you can see, it provides all the UI in only one tool and much more features such as internal support, of course, fully compliant with the Polyhuman interface guidelines, fully compliant with all the accessibility features provided by macOS, and we hope also on a very active open source community. These are the three main UIs available in IBM Notifier. As you can see from this snapshot, on the left we have the onboarding UI. On the center we have the pop-up dialog, and on the right one we have the alert/banner UI. As you can see, all the items green framed represent basically all the customizable elements of these UIs. Under the technical point of view, IBM Notifier is a native macOS application written using Swift 5 in Xcode and using Swift Package Manager as dependency management. It makes use of a modular approach, so that allowed us to create and to use multiple components that are basically different applications that interact with each other using background processes. As you can see from this short video, this is the structure of the Xcode project of IBM Notifier. There are multiple targets. We use Swift Package Manager to handle our open source dependencies. There are a shared folder where we collect all the shared code between each component, and one folder for each component. As you can see from this structure, each component is an application itself. And during the build phase of the core application, every component is copied inside the resource folder of the main bundle, let's say. This allows us to basically have this modular approach, but still facing only one simple application to the end user. The best way to interact with IBM Notifier is its command line interface. This CLI provides a complete set of arguments that allows the administrator to customize every element of the UI. This is a little example on how to reach basically the binary of the application and uses CLI. So the application is located inside the application folder. We reach the .application folder of the application, of the app, contents, macOS, IBM Notifier binary, and then to trigger a simple pop-up, we need only to define the type, pop-up in this case, and in this case I also defined a title. This is a simple title. As you can see, firing this command line invocation will make this pop-up appear with the default OK button. By default, if the administrator doesn't define any buttons on the pop-up dialogs, the OK button will appear. As you can see now from this output, the exit value of this execution is 0. And this changes based on the interaction of the user with the pop-up dialog. Let's talk a little bit about alerts and banner. IBM Notifier is able to show both kind of notification center banner style. This thanks to the usage of two different applications to handle banner and alert. This because macOS doesn't allow one application to have two different notification settings based on the usage we want to do of it. That's why we have these two components. And as you can see from this configuration profile we deployed on our end user devices, we set the default banner style for the banner components and the alert type for the alert component. The main differences between alerts and banner is that banners are automatically dismissed after 5 seconds. Instead, alert remain on user screen until the user does interact with it. This is a little example on how to use to trigger a banner or an alert using command line invocation. As you can see, I defined a type of banner and alert. Then I defined a title arguments, a subtitle, and then I also defined two buttons, the main one and the secondary one. This because only pop-ups has by default the main button set to OK. Since banner doesn't need really app buttons, you need to define every button you want to show inside this kind of UI. Pop-up dialogues are basically the most used UI that we have inside our workflows. And this because it provides a really consistent way to interact with the end user. As you can see from this example, to trigger a simple pop-up, you need to do anything else than define a type pop-up. Then we define a title, a subtitle, and then we define 3 label for the 3 main buttons. As you can see from main button and secondary button, I didn't need to define anything else than the label. This because they are destructive for the pop-up, and a click on it will anyway cause the pop-ups to disappear. Instead, for the tertiary button, I had to define a call to action. That is basically the scope of the button. In this case, I define a call to action type of type link, and the payload is, of course, the URL that will be triggered with a click on this button. For the app button, we don't need to define a label because it uses by default the system help icon. And I need only to define the call to action. So in this case, I define the call to action type of info popover, and the payload is basically the text that will be showed inside the info popover. A cool way to provide more information to the user using pop-up dialogues are accessory views. We defined this set of accessory views so far: white box, timer, progress bar, image, video, input, secure input, HTML, HTML white box, and so on. And much more will come. To define an accessory view, we need only to use these two arguments: accessory view type and accessory view payload. As you can see, every payload is custom for the kind of accessory view type we define. In this example, a white box accessory view type accepts as payload simple text or text with the markdown format. The HTML one, of course, accepts text with HTML markup. Then we have the progress bar accessory view type that basically accepts this custom payload that follows a key value paradigm. We have different keys such as %, top message, and bottom message that on the first command line invocation we use to define the initial state of the progress bar. In this case, I said to the pop-up to show a progress bar at 30% with this top message and this bottom message. Of course, the progress bar is interactive, so I can update it, basically only continue passing these keys and values to the agent. These are some other keys that you can use to customize the appearance of the progress bar. The accessory view type video accepts as payload, again, a custom payload with a key value. We have the URL key that accepts a local or a remote path, a direct link to the video resource. And then I use the autoplay and the delay keys that basically tells the pop-ups to automatically start the video after a delay of 5 seconds. The image accessory view type accepts as payload the direct link to the image resource, a local or remote, and also accept directly the base64 encoded image. Last examples are input and secure input. As you can see, it accepts as payload placeholder as key, and then the placeholder that should be visible inside the text field, and then the title key that basically define a title that will be showed right on top of the text field, and the required key. This is very useful because if the administrator want the user to enter some values inside this text field, it will let the pop-up to gray out the destructive buttons and to show them only if the user enter some values inside the text field. There are many more additional customization available for pop-up dialogs, such as the customization of the pop-up icons. We can set a background timeout. We can modify the default value for the bar title, for the background timeout, for the pop-up icon, for the main button title that will be used for every pop-ups. We can customize the pop-up position on the screen. We can customize the pop-up priority in view hierarchy if we want it always on top of the hierarchy, for example. We can silence the pop-up sound, of course, and we can show the miniaturized button on the title bar button, and much more will come. For a complete set of customization available for this kind of UI, I want you to suggest to visit our wiki that we will share the link in the next slides. The last UI that available inside the IBM Notifier are the onboarding UI. This is a really cool way to show and guide the user through a step-by-step process. In order to show you an example of these UIs, it was, to be honest, kind of hard to show it directly inside terminal. This is because the only two arguments that I need to trigger it is the type, onboarding, and the payload. But the payload is a string with a JSON format. Now it's kind of difficult to write an inline JSON string inside terminal. At least it's not that much readable. That's why I've written this script that you can see here on the left, where I define basically the path to the binary, the window type that I want to show the users for the onboarding, and then the payload. The payload, as you can see, is a JSON. This JSON has the structure that you see. And basically, we have an array of pages. Every page has a title, a subtitle, a media type, and media payload. And we can also have an info section with multiple fields. Now, firing up this script will show this onboarding UI. As you can see, the media and the video inherit all the commands from the system, from macOS. And then we have the info section with the multiple fields. Now to talk you a little bit more about some other way to interact with IBM Notifier and some other cool stuff, I pass the word to my colleague, Jan.
Thank you, Simone. So as we saw, all the options triggered via command line. There is one more option to invoke all the workflows, and we call it Deeplinks. So Deeplinks are basically, it's a stateless method to invoke all of the support notification flows, but instead of invoking a notification agent binary, we use custom URL scheme. How to generate the deep links and how are they secured? I encourage you to head over to our wiki down below at ibm.biz, IBM Notifier wiki. On next slide, we will show a short example how it's done. Okay, so here I'm just gonna show simple pop-up, but the only difference between between command line invocation and this one is that instead of binary, we just invoke this custom URL scheme, and we enter this JSON web token, which is generated by open source tool, which we also provide. Then notification agent will just verify if the JSON web token is valid, and if yes, it will show the pop-up. Next example, we just try to change this JSON web token, and we can see that no pop-up will be generated, thus providing us with a really simple but secure way to invoke any other workflows from IBM Notifier. Okay, so rebranding the agent. Once we open source IBM Notifier, the single most asked for feature was, single asked for feature was how to rebrand IBM Notifier to anybody own liking. So we decided to put together a simple guideline how to go about it, and again, it's published on our GitHub repo. On the next slide, we will show how it's done, and it's very easy to rebrand IBM Notifier to our own liking. So we start by cloning the repository to our own machine, right, and opening the project in Xcode. This is the look that you will see. The first thing we need to do is actually to change the names of all targets, which is 5 in this case, and also bundle IDs of all these targets to something that we want to have. In this case, it's my company, right, just to test. So we will go through changing each target name to my company alert, my company banner, and so on until we change all of those. And the same way we have to change also bundle IDs for each target. So in this case, I decided to call it com.mycompany.mynotifier-alert. And the last one, will be for onboarding. Again, my notifier onboarding, and bundle ID will be, as I said, my notifier onboarding. Once we have changed the names and bundle IDs, as we show here on the video, the next step will be, okay, one more change here. We need to make sure that all of the target names and all of the bundle IDs are actually correct ones. So we cannot basically mix it, otherwise, we would not have a successful build. Okay, once the names are changed, we can already see that Xcode changed automatically the product name. Next step is to change hard-coded strings. In this case, it's a pop-up title, right? So we change it to my notifier. And again, inside this Swift file, we need to change, again, all of the names of the target. So we decided to call it my notifier. So we change from IBM Notifier to my notifier. And the last one, for onboarding, that's done. And the last step in this file is again to change bundle IDs of all the targets, right? So we have app, we have alert, banner, onboarding. All of them will have to match those that we use at the beginning. Yes, this one and the last one is for onboarding. Once we have that successfully changed, we save the file, check if everything is correct. And next step would be to actually replace all the icons used inside the banner. So the easiest way is actually to just prepare the icons and then drag and drop them inside the Xcode. So there are other ways how to do it. You can do it in Finder, but the easiest and quickest way is just to grab the icons and drag and drop them inside the project. And as you can see, Xcode will replace all the icons with the correct ones. And one more icon, which is used as the icon on the pop-up, that's this one. And now let's try to successfully build the project. So we go to build option, and let's wait until the Xcode finishes the build. If anything, if any error comes up or anything, don't panic. Just we must have made some typo or something. But in this case, build is succeeded. But we can see that the Xcode didn't create any products. I wanted to open here via command line the product, but yeah, it doesn't exist. So don't panic. It might happen like it happened to me, but we just quickly go to clean project folder menu and rebuild again. And yeah, here it is. Try. And after it's rebuilt successfully, we should see the built product. If you, for any reason, you don't see any built product, just try to close Xcode and reopen the project again, because sometimes Xcode might, hang, especially when we were, drag and drop those icons. But in this case, yeah, the clean project folder worked, and now we should be able to actually invoke our new pop-up via command line. So let's see. Yeah, we should see now quickly our new pop-up with new icon. Yeah, here it is. So as you saw, rebranding the IBM Notifier, it's just a matter of a couple of minutes. And I encourage you to head over to our wiki, where you can see all the detailed steps outlined as we went through them. Okay, so now I would like to quickly share with you and talk a little bit about our future commitment to IBM Notifier. We constantly work on improvements, of course, of the product, as well as bringing new features. And we are listening to feedback and suggestions not only from our users, but also from open source and Mac admins community. So what we can share right now, what we are working on, as you can see on this small screenshot, it's creating really nice UI for showing past notifications. We call it a menu bar item, and we think it will be a really nice addition to our users. The next one is fully integration with Apple push notification system. And what we show here on the video, basically, this will allow us to send push notifications like any other Apple compliant application. Here, what I show, it's just a way that we can really concurrently send many notifications to many devices, and it basically looks like any other native macOS app. Here we quickly show that it's looking like exactly any other macOS app which provides notifications for the user. So you can see it's standard macOS app, fully integrated with Apple system. Okay, the last thing what I wanted to share with you guys is basically that IBM Notifier from the start was really built with open source in mind. We constantly communicate with users, developers, or just potential users on our GitHub repo, and I encourage you to head over there and see for yourself. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask there. We are slowly building a really nice community of IBM Notifier satisfied users. And with this, I'll leave the final word to Simone.
Yeah, as Gianni said, we looking forward for your feedbacks on this tool. We are really open to feature requests and to bug also, because it could happen, of course. Yeah, this is the link to our GitHub repo. Please send us feedbacks, and thank you for listening.